Welcome to Greek 2. In this lecture, we're going to focus on the present middle and passive indicative. We're sort of going along the line with Dr. Black's chapter 12, in his Learn to Read New Testament Greek. And we're focusing on this category of present middle and passive indicative. We already know the active, where the subject does the action, but what is happening over here? We're referring to voice, right? Active, passive, voices. What we have seen in that is that voice in Greek is concerned with the relation of the action of the verb to the subject. And so we have studied the active voice already. Now the question is, what is the middle and what is the passive? The present, middle, and passive indicative of luo will be our guide. So we're going to use that as a model. The Greek verb system has middle and passive voices. The significance of the passive is just like in English, as Dr. Black mentioned, the subject is receiving the action of the verb. Often when you write papers, you are told, hey, avoid the passive. But the passive does have a purpose and does have its own nuance. It has its own flavor. But the middle, on the other hand, represents the subject doing things to benefit itself. So, active, subject does the action to the object. Passive, the subject receives the action. But the middle voice is where the subject does things to benefit himself, herself, itself. And so, how the action is related to the subject is not indicated by the middle voice itself, but by the context. So, context is the key to know, is it middle, is it passive? In English, passive forms are made up of the passive participle of a verb, preceded by the appropriate part of the verb be, is loved or was hidden, as Dr. Black mentions. The verb be may itself be used as an auxiliary, as in is being loved or had been loved. In Greek, such composite tenses are not used, okay? So instead, Greek uses single word forms, luomai, I am being loosed. So when it comes down to the conjugation, it'll be omai, sai, tai, meta, este, ontai. Okay, so when you apply that to luo, the verb to lose, it becomes luomai, lue, luetai, luometa, luesta, luontai. You say, wait a minute, I thought you said the second person singular is sai, right? But if you notice, there's Dr. Black sort of explains that how this form has been shortened from luesai by the dropping of the s, but that's where we get into morphology and things like that, which I will have a video on that, hopefully to help you understand the significance of morphology. In this short 7-week session, it is hard to cover all these details, so I'm trying to explain the bigger concepts and encouraging you to work through Dr. Black's book. So the book is your guide. I'm giving you the bigger concepts, dealing with certain intricacies and exceptions. So hopefully you're getting the big picture of New Testament Greek. So let's keep moving. So let's think about luo, loose. For passive, it becomes luo mai. Now, how do you translate that? I am loosed, or I am loosing. But keep in mind, that sounds very much like the perfect. Remember the perfect tense we dealt with in, I believe, chapter 13? So a better way to translate that is I am being loosed, present active, present passive indicative. So I am being loosed, or you are being loosed, or he, she, it is being loosed, would distinguish it from the perfect tense translation. Now let's talk about the middle voice for a moment, okay? So this can be passive, and as we mentioned, also middle. So how does it work? How is the subject being benefited by that action, and how can you work that into a translation? Well, in the middle voice, as Dr. Black explains it here, the subject is involved in the action of the verb, but the manner of the involvement must be inferred from the context. So there is no single way of translating the middle voice into English. So luomai as a middle include I am loosing myself, or I am loosing for myself, or I myself am loosing. So if you notice how the subject is being benefited by the action. So this would be I am being loosed, and this one for the middle would be I am loosing myself, I am loosing for myself, I myself am loosing. There's that element of the subject is being benefited, or is sort of the center stage in this action, even though it is a passive. It is a passive translation. The three ways. The first is the reflexive middle. This refers to the result of the action of the verb directly to the subject. For example, Matthew 27:5, Judas hanged himself. So here, the reflexive pronoun himself does not occur in the Greek. It is implied from the middle voice of the verb. So don't look for it there, but this is sort of what translators have to do to supply it. And so, again, you're not going to find that reflexive pronoun. Another example that Dr. Black gives of this reflexive middle is 1 Corinthians 6:11. You washed yourselves. 2 Corinthians 11:14. Satan disguises himself. So still middle, as Satan is sort of benefiting himself. So these are the examples of reflexive middle. But then there's also the intensive middle, which emphasizes the agent as producing the action rather than participating in its results. So here's an example from Hebrews 9:12. He himself secured eternal redemption. Here the idea is that Jesus and no one else has accomplished redemption. Again, the word himself has been supplied from the middle voice. It's not there, but the voice, helps you understand that it has to be himself. So intensive middle. And I admit, this is sort of hard at times to translate, and this is where students sort of get bogged down and they go, I don't know. How does this work? Is this reflexive? Is it intensive? And then the third category, the reciprocal middle, is the use of a plural subject engaged in an interchange of action. So like John 9:22 talks about the Jews were agreeing with one another. But usually, however, this idea is expressed by an active verb plus the pronoun allelous, one another. And so it kind of gives it away. So keep these things in mind: the reflexive middle, the intensive middle, and the reciprocal middle with the plural subject engaged in that action benefiting itself. Deponents. What do we do with deponents? Dr. Black has this section, 83, on deponent verbs. In the next video, I will help you not only understand deponents, but also bring you up to speed with some of the latest research among Greek scholars and their conclusion regarding deponents. It's been a long time coming, from the time of J.H. Moulton, A.T. Robertson, to now. This has been a kind of a complex category of verbs, deponents. But in the next video, we're going to learn not only what they are or what they were supposed to be, and where does research stand regarding the deponent verbs.